The afternoon sun streamed through the half-open window, bathing the familiar apartment in a warm, golden light. He, 22, felt a strange mix of anticipation and hesitation as he stepped inside, drawn by the playful energy that always seemed to surround her. She was 40, a 40-year-old American Latina woman, long black hair falling effortlessly over her shoulders, lightly tanned skin glowing softly in the sunlight, and dark brown eyes that sparkled with a mischievous warmth. Her curvy, graceful figure carried a confident elegance, yet the subtle laugh lines at the corners of her eyes hinted at a life lived fully, with humor and resilience. The teasing words cut through the ordinary rhythm of the day. "Close the door, and let me have my fun." The room seemed to shrink around him, his chest tightening, palms subtly clammy, heart beating faster than he expected. The bright environment, once neutral and familiar, suddenly felt charged with a delicate tension, as if every sunlit corner were aware of the moment unfolding. The fragrance of her perfume, mingled with the faint scent of the coffee she'd brewed earlier, created a sensory backdrop that heightened his awareness of her presence. Every movement she made commanded attention without demanding it. The tilt of her head, the faint curve of her lips, and the subtle sway of her body as she leaned slightly against the counter all communicated both confidence and playfulness. He noticed the way the sunlight kissed her skin, accentuating the gentle contours of her face and the graceful lines of her posture. Even the soft ripple of her long black hair as she adjusted it seemed intentional, an unspoken invitation to notice and respond. Internally, he experienced a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Curiosity battled with hesitation, admiration with nervousness. Her teasing tone carried a playful dominance, and he was caught between the desire to engage and the fear of misreading her intentions. The bright, sunlit apartment amplified every subtle cue. A glance that lingered too long, a playful smile that suggested she knew exactly the effect she had on him. The emotional goal of this keynote is to establish the initial spark of tension and curiosity, highlighting the age gap dynamic and the slow burn nature of the interaction. The audience should feel his nervous excitement and the magnetic pull of her confident, alluring presence, fully immersed in the sensory and emotional details of the scene. Physical cues are subtle but deliberate. Her hand resting momentarily near his on the counter, the almost brush of her fingers, the way she shifts her weight slightly closer. Each gesture communicates invitation without crossing boundaries, reinforcing the YouTube-safe romance style. By the end of this keynote, the stage is set. The playful tension is palpable, his nervousness is relatable, and the audience is drawn into a slow-burn connection that promises deeper emotional engagement. The story hints at what might come, creating anticipation while keeping the interaction grounded, respectful, and emotionally charged. The playful invitation still lingered in the air, like the soft echo of a whispered secret. He, 22, stood frozen for a moment, the words "close the door," and "let me have my fun" repeating in his mind. Every muscle felt taut, his palms clammy, and his heart raced in a rhythm that made the bright apartment feel both larger and impossibly intimate. She was 40, a 40-year-old American Latina woman, long black hair cascading smoothly over her shoulders, lightly tanned skin illuminated by the warm sunlight streaming in through the window, and dark brown eyes that carried a mixture of mischief, patience, and subtle warmth. Her curvy figure and graceful posture exuded a quiet confidence, and the faint laugh lines around her eyes hinted at life experience that only added to her allure. As he hesitated, she didn't rush him. Instead, she leaned casually against the counter, the sunlight highlighting the gentle curves of her silhouette. One hand rested near him on the edge of the counter, a proximity that drew awareness to every inch of space between them. The subtle warmth radiating from her presence was impossible to ignore, and the soft, rhythmic rise and fall of her chest as she breathed seemed to synchronize, in his mind, with his own anxious heartbeat. He felt an almost magnetic pull toward her, part curiosity, part nervous excitement. The bright room, once mundane, now seemed charged with possibility, every sunlit corner emphasizing her beauty and poise. The faint scent of her perfume mingled with the aroma of coffee and sunlight, creating an invisible cocoon of sensory detail that intensified his awareness of her presence. Her dark brown eyes softened as she noticed his hesitation, a slight, teasing smile curling at the corners of her lips. She tilted her head subtly, letting a strand of her black hair fall forward, brushing lightly against her shoulder. A small, delicate gesture that invited his attention without demanding it. His gaze flickered to hers, then away, a battle between wanting to meet her eyes and feeling overwhelmed by the intensity of the moment. The emotional goal of this keynote is to highlight internal conflict and emotional vulnerability. He struggles with nervousness, excitement, and hesitation, while she maintains a composed, inviting presence. Their age gap dynamic is emphasized through her confident, playful control and his youthful, tentative curiosity. The audience should feel the tension building in every glance, every subtle gesture, and every heartbeat. Physical cues are gentle and YouTube safe. The near brush of her fingers on the counter, the slight lean toward him, and the playful tilt of her head. Every motion carries meaning, deepening the slow burn tension while remaining appropriate. By the end of this keynote, the audience is fully immersed in his nervous anticipation, aware of the subtle pull between curiosity and hesitation. The foundation is laid for the next stage, where gestures and body language will deepen the emotional connection and the slow burn attraction will become more tangible. The playful tension between them had begun to settle into a delicate rhythm, each movement and glance charged with unspoken meaning. He, 22, felt every detail acutely, the warmth radiating from her presence, the faint scent of her perfume mingling with sunlight and the lingering aroma of coffee. She was 40, a 40-year-old American Latina woman, long black hair cascading over her shoulders, lightly tanned skin glowing in the bright afternoon light, and dark brown eyes sparkling with a mixture of amusement and intent focus. Her curvy, graceful figure moved effortlessly as she shifted closer, every motion exuding confidence and poise. The moment was punctuated by subtle touches that sent shivers of awareness through him. She reached for a book on the counter, and her fingers brushed his arm ever so lightly. It was accidental, or so it seemed. Yet the warmth of her hand, the softness of her touch, lingered longer than expected. The sunlight caught the delicate contours of her hand, and he felt an electric awareness of proximity, the kind that made a normally simple gesture feel significant. Her dark brown eyes held his in a playful, teasing gaze, as if she were silently challenging him to notice every small detail. The tilt of her head, the gentle sway of her hair as she tucked a strand behind her ear, the subtle arch of her eyebrows, each nuance was deliberate, drawing his attention without a single word. His chest tightened, awareness heightened, and the familiar space of the apartment transformed into an intimate arena of slow-burn tension. Emotionally, this keynote is about amplifying the slow-build attraction through physical cues and heightened sensory awareness. He is acutely conscious of every near touch, every brush of hair, every soft laugh that lingers in the air. The audience should feel the thrill of anticipation, the subtle excitement of what remains unspoken, and the magnetic pull between youth and experience. Even small, YouTube-safe gestures carry meaning. A hand resting briefly near his, a playful lean toward him, or a light touch as she adjusts an object on the counter becomes a vehicle for intimacy. These moments are enhanced by the bright, sunlit environment, warm, welcoming, and safe, yet charged with emotional tension. The sunlight accentuates her tan skin, highlights the curves of her figure, and creates a vibrant contrast that makes her presence more captivating. The inner conflict is palpable. He wants to respond, to reach out, to lean in, yet hesitates, aware of both social norms and the delicate nature of the interaction. She, fully aware of his hesitation, maintains her composed confidence, letting the tension stretch just long enough to be thrilling without breaking boundaries. By the end of this keynote, the audience is deeply invested in the connection. The subtle physical cues have transformed a simple interaction into a heightened emotional experience, laying the groundwork for playful engagement, shared vulnerability, and further deepening of the slow-burn romance in the next stages. Every glance, brush of skin, and smile is an unspoken conversation, making the audience long to see how this tension will unfold. The charged tension of the earlier moments began to give way to a shared rhythm of playfulness, a dance of words and gestures that drew them closer without breaking boundaries. He, 22, felt a heady mix of nervous excitement and budding confidence. She, 40, a 40-year-old American Latina woman, long black hair glinting under the bright sunlight, lightly tanned skin glowing, dark brown eyes twinkling with amusement, moved with an effortless grace that made the space between them feel smaller, more intimate. Her curvy, confident figure radiated warmth, and the subtle laugh lines at the corners of her eyes softened her teasing demeanor into something inviting. A light, teasing remark from her made him blush, and his nervous laugh filled the sunlit apartment. She tilted her head slightly, letting a strand of black hair fall over her shoulder, her dark brown eyes observing his reaction like a gentle game. The room felt alive, sunlight spilling across the countertops and floor, highlighting the warmth of her skin and the casual elegance of her movements. Every glance held a question. Every tilt of her lips suggested a playful challenge. Physical proximity was subtle but meaningful. As she leaned to pick up a small item from the counter, her body brushed against his side ever so lightly. The contact, fleeting yet noticeable, sent a thrill through him, heightening awareness of her presence. Every gesture, a playful nudge, a hand lingering near his, or the faint brush of hair against her shoulder, was a silent conversation, rich with unspoken words and shared understanding. Emotionally, this keynote emphasizes the development of mutual engagement through playful interaction. He is slowly letting go of initial hesitation, responding with nervous smiles and tentative jokes. She, in turn, balances teasing with reassurance, creating a safe, inviting space where curiosity and attraction can coexist. The age gap dynamic is subtly reinforced. Her confidence and life experience guide the playful tension, while his youthful sincerity and reactive charm make the exchanges feel alive and emotionally grounded. The bright, welcoming environment enhances the warmth of the moment. Sunlight catches her tanned skin, the smooth lines of her arms, and the subtle curves of her figure, drawing attention without being overt. The aroma of coffee and faint perfume lingers, adding a sensory depth that complements the emotional connection. His nervousness mingles with exhilaration as he notices these details, deepening his awareness and appreciation for her presence. By the end of this keynote, the audience should feel the thrill of slow-burn flirtation, teasing balanced with budding emotional intimacy. The tension is softened by shared laughter, the warmth of proximity, and the unspoken invitation for further connection. Both characters are opening up, establishing a rhythm of playful engagement that prepares the stage for emotional vulnerability and deeper bonds in the next keynotes. The scene leaves the audience anticipating what comes next, how their playful interactions will evolve into quiet, heartfelt moments, and how this age gap romance will continue to explore curiosity, trust, and emotional closeness while remaining YouTube safe and engaging. The laughter and teasing had softened, giving way to a quieter, more intimate rhythm. He, 22, felt a shift in the atmosphere, the playful tension evolving into something tender, emotionally charged, and deeply human. She, 40, a 40-year-old American Latina woman, long black hair flowing smoothly over her shoulders, lightly tanned skin glowing in the bright sunlight, dark brown eyes softening with warmth, moved with a graceful ease, the curves of her figure accentuated by the natural light that filled the room. Her subtle smile lines and the gentle arch of her brows conveyed both experience and vulnerability, revealing a side of her that was rarely seen. For the first time, she allowed glimpses of herself beyond the playful teasing. Perhaps she shared a light personal anecdote, a story tinged with humor and honesty, or casually admitted a quirky habit, inviting him into her world. Her voice was soft, melodic, and steady, resonating warmth and reassurance. As she spoke, he felt a gentle pull toward her, not just because of her charm, but because the sincerity in her eyes made it impossible to look away. Each word, each gesture, was intentional, creating a safe space for emotional exchange without crossing boundaries. He responded cautiously, his youthful nervousness tempered by growing trust. His laughter, once awkward, became more natural. His words, once hesitant, now carried sincerity and curiosity. The subtle exchange of emotions, shared smiles, lingering glances, and gentle shifts closer in space, communicated more than conversation ever could. His awareness of her presence was heightened. The warmth radiating from her, the faint scent of her perfume mingling with the sunlight and faint aroma of coffee, and the soft brush of her hair against her shoulder. Every detail deepened the sense of connection. Physical cues remained YouTube-safe but meaningful. A hand resting near his for a brief moment, her shoulders slightly brushing against his, or the tilt of her head as she listened intently conveyed intimacy without explicitness. The bright, inviting environment amplified these gestures, the sunlight accentuating her tan skin and the natural grace of her figure. Her laughter, soft and genuine, added an emotional layer that made the moment feel alive, warm, and real. Emotionally, this keynote is about building mutual trust and vulnerability, showing how attraction grows beyond physicality into deep emotional connection. The age gap dynamic is subtly reinforced. Her experience allows her to guide the emotional flow, while his sincerity and responsiveness make the interaction feel authentic and relatable. The audience is drawn into a tender, heartfelt exchange, feeling the warmth and depth of their connection as it develops. By the end of this keynote, the playful energy of earlier moments has matured into meaningful emotional intimacy. The audience should feel the weight of their bond, the subtle thrill of mutual understanding, and the promise of continued emotional closeness. The stage is set for silent invitation and unspoken connection, leading naturally into the slow-burn tension peak in the next keynote. The playful laughter and tentative jokes had faded into a quiet, charged atmosphere, where words felt almost unnecessary. He, 22, sensed every subtle shift in the space between them, his heart beating a little faster, palms slightly warm with anticipation. She, 40, a 40-year-old American Latina woman, long black hair cascading over her shoulders, lightly tanned skin illuminated by the bright sunlight streaming through the windows, and dark brown eyes soft yet sparkling with unspoken intent, moved with a calm, confident grace that made each small gesture feel deliberate and meaningful. Her curvy, poised figure radiated a natural warmth, and the faint lines at the corners of her eyes added a touch of lived-in beauty, hinting at wisdom and subtle vulnerability. In this moment, every movement she made was an unspoken conversation. A hand resting near his arm, a slight lean closer while reaching for a book, or the tilt of her head as she caught his gaze. Each action was loaded with silent invitation. He noticed the warmth radiating from her body, the soft scent of her perfume blending with sunlight and the faint aroma of the room, and the slight shimmer of her hair as it fell over her shoulder. Every detail heightened his awareness, making the ordinary apartment feel suddenly intimate, charged with anticipation. The emotional goal of this keynote is to peak the slow-burn tension through nonverbal cues. His nervousness and curiosity meet her composed, playful confidence in a dance of unspoken signals. The audience feels every heartbeat, every glance, every near touch, experiencing the magnetic pull of their growing connection. The age gap dynamic adds depth. Her experience allows her to navigate the interaction with subtle mastery, while his youthful earnestness makes every gesture resonate more profoundly. Physical cues remain delicate and YouTube-safe. Her fingers hover near his without touching. Her shoulder brushes lightly against his arm as she shifts position, and her dark brown eyes hold his gaze with quiet intensity. These gestures communicate desire and trust without overt sexualization. The bright environment enhances the effect. Sunlight accentuates her tan skin, illuminates the curves of her figure, and highlights the expressiveness of her face, making her presence even more captivating. Internally, he struggles with a mix of nervousness and exhilaration. Every subtle signal from her invites him to lean in, to respond, but the careful balance of restraint and openness keeps the moment charged yet respectful. He feels the thrill of potential connection, the tension of what could unfold, and the warmth of her quiet attentiveness. By the end of this keynote, the audience is fully immersed in the peak of silent romantic tension. Words have taken a back seat to glances, gestures, and shared energy, creating an emotionally rich, slow-burn experience. The stage is set for the final resolution, emotional and physical closeness expressed through tender, YouTube-safe interactions that provide fulfillment without crossing boundaries. This moment prepares the story for a satisfying, heartwarming conclusion in the next keynote. The sun had shifted, casting a soft, golden light across the room that made everything feel warmer, more intimate. He, 22, felt a quiet calm settle over him, a sense of ease that hadn't existed in the earlier nervousness. She, 40, a 40-year-old American Latina woman, long black hair flowing gently over her shoulders, lightly tanned skin glowing in the sunlight, dark brown eyes soft and luminous with a mix of amusement and tenderness, exuded a serene, graceful presence. Her curvy figure carried the confidence of life experience, yet there was vulnerability in the subtle lines at the corners of her eyes, revealing someone who had lived, loved, and now allowed herself to share trust in this quiet moment. The teasing and playful tension had naturally evolved into a shared warmth. Their proximity was comfortable now, a hand resting lightly on the edge of the table near his, a subtle brush of her shoulder as she moved, lingering glances that spoke volumes without words. Each gesture was deliberate yet effortless, reinforcing the connection that had been built over moments of laughter, teasing, hesitation, and silent invitation. The bright, sunlit environment highlighted her tan skin, the graceful contours of her figure, and the sparkle in her dark brown eyes, emphasizing the realism and beauty of the interaction. Emotionally, this keynote focuses on fulfillment and intimacy through meaningful, nonverbal connection. He no longer feels the nervous tension that had gripped him earlier. Instead, he experiences the quiet thrill of closeness, the gentle comfort of mutual understanding. She maintains her playful charm but softens it with warmth, allowing a sense of trust and emotional intimacy to flourish. Their age gap dynamic is clear yet unforced. Her life experience guides the pace and depth of interaction, while his youthful sincerity complements it, creating a balance that feels authentic and emotionally resonant. Physical cues remain YouTube-safe but rich with emotional meaning. Her hand brushes his arm in a fleeting gesture of reassurance. A playful tilt of her head meets his gaze, and a subtle smile warms the space between them. These small touches and expressions carry the weight of the connection, deepening the emotional resonance without crossing boundaries. The interplay of sunlight and the bright, welcoming environment amplifies the tenderness, highlighting her skin, hair, and the natural grace of her movements. By this point, their relationship has reached a satisfying emotional apex. Shared laughter, lingering looks, and gentle touches communicate a deep, unspoken understanding. The audience feels the culmination of the slow-burn romance. Playful teasing has transformed into genuine warmth, nervous hesitation into comfortable closeness, and silent invitations into mutual trust. The story ends on a heartwarming, complete note, with no cliffhangers, leaving viewers emotionally fulfilled. The tension resolves naturally, demonstrating how an age-gap romance can be respectful, intimate, and deeply satisfying without explicit content. The final image is of two people who have bridged differences in age and experience to create a bond that is tender, human, and enduring. By the end of this keynote, the audience is left with a sense of emotional satisfaction, having witnessed a slow, careful build of attraction, vulnerability, and trust transformed into a warm, safe, and intimate connection. The story closes beautifully, emphasizing the power of subtlety, nonverbal communication, and genuine emotional intimacy in a slow-burn romance.